car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and host David Lamb.
Good evening and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. For the next half hour, we have a panel of experts that are going to deal with a subject matter that we believe is of interest to you. And trust me, this one is going to be interesting. You're going to want to stick around for that. We'll get the details on that coming up. A couple of reminders. You can call attorneys from Hollis, Wright, who are standing by live right now. Actual attorneys ready to take a free, confidential, all-fair call from you and talk about maybe answer your legal questions having to do with tonight's subject matter or maybe something different. They do that each and every Sunday night during the attorneys. And you can communicate with us by the information you see at the bottom of your screen. That's how you can join our conversation. We would love to hear from you. Leading our conversation from the firm of Hollis, Wright, Carter Clay. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, David. I hope you're doing well.
Doing well, and you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of shows in the past dealing with criminal law and criminal procedure where we kind of talk in the abstract and be general about, well, what can you expect if you're charged with a crime, or what does the criminal process look like, how long does it take, what are the procedural steps. But tonight it's going to be a little bit of a different show because we are going to look at really some real world situations that people in North Alabama are very interested in and likely confront on a daily basis that involve aspects of criminal law. And we're going to kind of do a deep dive into those specific situations and help people understand what their rights are and what their responsibilities are to law enforcement if they're caught up or find themselves in this type of situation. And I can think of no better person than Victor Revill to help us kind of navigate through this area of the law. Victor is an outstanding criminal defense attorney here in the Birmingham area and really the surrounding counties of Birmingham as well. He's got a diverse criminal law practice. And Victor, thank you so much for joining us here this evening and welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. I like what you all are doing, talking about real issues that affect the common person, the issue affects the most sophisticated person, and getting the law out. So I think it's a really good thing.
Well, give the viewers a little bit of background on you as a person, what your legal practice looks like, and how you got involved in doing criminal defense work.
Absolutely. So I started my practice doing criminal defense. I started when it was just me. I started law practice up back in 2010, and criminal defense was just my only area at that time. And then I brought on more practice areas and brought on more attorneys, and criminal defense has been my main focus area that whole time, and it's been my love. And that's what I do, and I absolutely love doing it. And I tell people if I could do criminal defense work and not charge a fee, I would, because it's the thing that I'm most passionate about, and we can help a lot of people with it. So
well, and we always hear, it's sort of a cliche, people say, well, how can you defend those individuals? They're criminals. But it is really truly the bedrock of the legal rights that people have, because you see it firsthand, but you see the people that are wrongfully prosecuted or wrongfully convicted. And, you know, if it was a perfect system and every person that was charged with a crime was absolutely guilty, it might be a little difficult to defend people knowing that they're guilty. But you see so many times where people are wrongfully prosecuted and wrongfully convicted. And that really, I guess, gives you a lot of strength and encouragement that you're doing really good work defending people, some of whom are obviously guilty, but a lot of whom may be wrongfully charged.
Absolutely. People don't realize that innocent people get charged with crimes until they have went through a situation, a family member or friend of theirs have went through a situation. Me personally, I personally was persecuted. I personally was wrongfully charged and had to go through the process. And I think it gives me a level of empathy with my clients because, hey, I went through the situation as well. I was wrongfully arrested back in February of 2017 in Blount County and had to go through that situation and dealt with it. And it's just such a blessing to have individuals that's willing to fight for you, that's willing to advocate on your behalf, despite what others may say, despite that negative stigmatism that comes with that charge. And people just really need to know that you are innocent until proven guilty, and innocent people get charged day in, day out. Guilty people get charged as well, but everybody gets charged is not guilty.
Well, and we can deviate for a minute. I was curious as to whether or not you were going to bring that up, but obviously that I'm familiar with that arrest, and it had to do with your representation of somebody who was charged with a crime. And I think you were arrested because you had possession of your client's cell phone. There was a search warrant for your client, and they searched him. Phone wasn't on him, but somebody suggested you had the phone. They wanted the phone from you. You, acting in the best interest of your client, I think did not turn it over, and you got caught up in that and got arrested. I may have missed some facts there, but.
Yeah, so this was a situation, we was there for a protection from abuse case. I was representing my client there in Blount County, and we had needed his cell phones to represent him in his protection from abuse case. And so while we was inside the courthouse, we got 2 of his cell phones from him. It was me and my associate was there with me. And he had 1 cell phone as well that was still on his person. And so we're walking outside of the courthouse, and a law enforcement officer comes up and he says, "We have a search warrant to search you and your vehicle, and we're finna use that search warrant right now." And so me and my associate, we're right there. We're like, "Hey, can we see that search warrant?" The officer says, "Sure." We read it. It says that he has the right to search my client and his vehicle, and he was looking for search for cell phones. We said, "Hey, go ahead, comply with this." But then they want to say, "Hey, well, we want to search, we know that your associate in her bag, she has some cell phones. We want to get that as well." And I rightfully and lawfully said, "Well, you don't have the authority to do that. You do not have the right to search me and my associate because your search warrant says you can search this man, this vehicle." So I rightfully and lawfully withheld consent to a warrantless search of my person.
Yeah, and ultimately those charges were dismissed.
They were. Well, we had to go to trial.
Right. Weren't they ultimately dismissed, or? Yeah,
we got a directed verdict, so we didn't have to put on defense or anything. The judge found as a matter of law, we did not violate the law. Yeah. As a matter of fact, if I was to just hand over, me as being his attorney, if my client, and you know this, your client gives you something, and it's something that's not inherently illegal, something that's not illegal. Your client gives you something, you can't just give it to someone else unless they got the authority to get that. You can't just hand that over.
Well, as you were communicating all of that, what struck me is that the predicament that you were in, because if you had turned it over and you were not legally obligated to turn it over, your client would have been like, "Look, you committed malpractice.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't have turned that evidence
Absolutely.
over."
And we have an issue with the state bar. And I may not be practicing here today. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
What a tough spot. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about it. And we've got some viewer questions that we got in advance. And one of the questions is, I just found out that I have a warrant for my arrest. How much evidence is needed before a warrant is issued for my arrest? In other words, I guess, what does the judge have to have? Is it beyond a reasonable doubt? Is it probable cause? Talk a little bit about that standard.
It is this standard that a lot of people don't understand, that is often debated, and it's called probable cause. But probable cause is just an officer's reasonable belief that a crime has been committed. And so if someone says this person raped me, if someone says this person stole from me, broke into my house, or robbed me, that officer could say, "Hey, I find probable cause here," and you get arrested. Now, probable cause is a very, very low standard. It's an accusation that somebody believes. Beyond a reasonable doubt, what's needed to convict this person of that crime is a very high standard. And so oftentimes a warrant may go out, but pursuant to the rules of criminal procedure, you can have a probable cause hearing, and the judge may say, "You know what? I don't agree there's probable cause here. I know that officer thought there was probable cause. I don't think it is," and then throw it out.
Yeah, and in this day in social media, it's hard to unring that bell if you get publicity surrounding an arrest, even though you may be wrongfully charged with a crime. So.
Absolutely, because a lot of times in a court of public opinion, you're guilty upon the accusation. And not really the truth in a lot of cases.
Not the way it's supposed to go. All right, we need to take our first break. This has been fascinating so far. I can't wait for our other 2 segments. We're taking a break, our first break of the evening. As we do so, a reminder, Hollis Wright active on social media. Check them out on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Just search Hollis Wright to find them there. Stay tuned. We're coming right back. I'm
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
Having a crucial conversation tonight on The Attorneys on the subject matter of criminal defense. We appreciate you joining us. A reminder before we get back to the conversation between Victor and Carter is that you could take advantage of this opportunity to speak with attorneys from Hollis Wright who are standing by live even as we speak. So if you've got a question, conversation with an attorney, you can have that. That's free, off-air, confidential. Just pick up the phone and give them a call. Carter?
Yeah, Victor, thankfully this has never happened to me before, but I'm sure you've heard of situations in your practice where so-and-so is sitting at home, they get a call from the police station tells them, hey, I'm such and such police officer, we'd like for you to come down to the station, we have some questions for you about some legal matter. Person's thinking, okay, am I the subject of a crime, or are they asking me to come down to potentially as a witness? What are their legal rights? Do they have to go? What should they tell the police officer?
They have the absolute right to not go, and they have the absolute right to have an attorney to go with them if they so choose to go. And you know, a lot of times, you know, the detectives will tell them, or the investigator will tell them, it's not a big deal, come down and talk to me. And then the person may say, well, do I need a lawyer for that? And then the detective may say, well, I mean, you only need a lawyer if you're guilty of something. So false. You know, a lot of times people will go down, they'll talk to an investigator, they'll talk to a detective without an attorney, and you'll have false confessions, you'll have an incriminating statement, and you haven't done anything wrong, but it's enough there to give probable cause to push this criminal case forward. Whereas you've had the guiding hand of an attorney to walk you through this, to go down there with you. A lot of the games that are played wouldn't necessarily be played. And you know, these officers have a job to do. They got a job to do, they get accusations, and they got to follow up on them. So, you know, they do their job. But you are going to talk to a professional that's not necessarily on your team. You need to have somebody on your team. You need to have an advocate that's willing to have your back and to make sure that everything goes the right way. Because in the end, what happens is, if you ultimately say something wrong, and even if you're not guilty of an offense, but you say something wrong, you have to look at attorney's fees, you have to look at bonding fees to bond out of jail, stress, a lot of things that go through this rigorous process, where if you would have had an attorney go down with you in the first place, this probably would not be a situation.
Now, you had some interesting statistics, or there's some interesting statistics about false confessions in the materials that we have, and I was actually surprised at the high number of people that give false confessions. And so I guess that begs the question of, why would somebody falsely confess? Is it out of fear? Is it out of ignorance? Is it out of confusion? Or all of the above and some other reason? I
think all of those things play into it. The Innocent Project did a test, and they showed that 1 in 4 of the people that were exonerated by DNA evidence, so these people are 100% innocent, had gave false confessions. You know, and there was also a study that showed that the younger crowd, 21 and younger, were more likely to give a false confession for something they're not guilty of, because they get tricked, they get intimidated, they get scared, different tactics that are played in that interrogation room, and people handle it differently. People handle stress in very, very different ways. And you gotta have someone there with you. You gotta have someone that's been through this process, that knows how it goes, that knows the games that are played, and can advise you so that these type of situations don't come up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually heard people say it seems crazy that people would say, well, I falsely confessed because I thought that if I just told them what they wanted to hear, they'd let me go home. But obviously that's not going to happen.
Countless times. Yeah. Countless times have I heard that very same thing because the cops say, okay, just tell me you did. Just tell me you did. You can leave. You can go home now. Okay, I did it. Well, now you just admitted you committed a crime. And now you're not walking out of here. You're going to walk out here in handcuffs. You're going to the jail. And now you got to go through a whole process that you may not have had to go through had you took the time, talked to an attorney, been advised of your rights, and went from there.
Wow. Another question we've got here. Now, you kind of objected to a warrantless search. Us average folks aren't fancy hotshot attorneys like you two. Do I have the right to object to a warrantless search, like John Q. Public here?
Absolutely. You have the absolute right. You got a Fourth Amendment to be free from a warrantless search. Now, I tell my clients this. You can't prevent this officer from searching you. You can't, don't roll up your windows. Don't drive off in your car. Don't talk crap and start cursing. Don't be disrespectful. You want to be clear, I don't consent to this search. But if the officer wants to search anyway, then you don't do anything to prevent it because you're not going to win that battle on the street. You get an attorney like myself, or get an attorney like you win that battle in the courtroom. You don't win that battle on the street.
Well, I don't know if you remember this. It's been a couple of years ago in Tuscaloosa. There was video footage. I think some college kids were having a late night party.
Yeah.
Police show up at the apartment. The student or the person, they kept asking him to come out of the apartment. He was refusing to come out of the apartment and wouldn't consent to them coming in. And it very ugly scene, but ultimately it resulted in the police, and somebody had videotape on their iPhone. They ultimately resulted in the person being pulled out of the apartment into the hallway, and there was a melee and arrests were made, and I don't remember everything that happened. Do you remember that incident? Because I think that highlights a lot of these points.
I remember seeing it. I didn't follow the case to see what happened later, if they sued or anything like that. But what happens is when you withhold your consent and your rights are violated anyway, so if the court finds that you withheld your consent and this officer went and broke the law and searched you in violation of your Fourth Amendment rights, then anything that's found in that situation can be thrown out as a fruit of the poisonous tree. That's not used against you, and also that's a violation of your liberties. And so that officer may have to be thinking about, well, am I going to get sued on a 1983 civil rights action? So it's always best to just know your rights, to withhold your consent. You don't have to consent to a search of your person, but you cannot prevent that officer.
Well, I'm not sure where we are in terms of a break, but one thing, like with all rules, there are exceptions to the rule, and I do believe there's an exception to what you just said, which is say for like kidnapping, if the officer believed that the person or the place they wanted to search had kidnapped a child or something like that, can't they go in that type of situation if they have reason to believe that liberty or health and safety are at stake?
So an officer can always, if they feel like they have a right to search or do it, they can do that. But you always have your right to say, well, I'm not consenting to this. Okay. You always have that right to say that. Now, if they want to do whatever, they will do whatever. It's time as we see. But you have the right to withhold your consent.
And just to put a kind of a bow on the search, the warrant. So John Q. Public, again, he can ask to read. So check out what's on the warrant, because yours, they were searching something that was not on the warrant. So you could just ask to take a look at that warrant and then follow whatever it says, but don't allow anything more than that, I guess.
That's right. And and part of your consent, well, let me say this: you can always ask to see the warrant.
Okay.
Now, sometimes some officers will show it to you. You deal with personalities. We deal with humans. So some officer may say, "Yeah, I'll let you see it." Some officer may, "No, I'm not going to let you see it."
Take my word for it.
Yeah, I don't take anybody's word for it. Yeah. So I would always just withhold my consent. But you can give your consent in partial. You can say, "Well, you can search this room, or you can search this compartment," and at any time you can bring your consent back. Say, "You know what? I don't consent anymore." And if they feel they have probable cause, or they want to get a warrant, they'll take those steps that they can take. Right. But you always have that right to say no.
All right, time for us to Well, we're just zooming through tonight, man. This needs to be a two-parter, Carter. No doubt about that. All right, we're heading to another break. As we do so, a reminder how you can join our conversation. I'm sure you're being triggered to do some questions. Would love to hear from you. Stay tuned. The final segment of The Attorney is coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. As with any industry, it's important in the legal world to hire an attorney that is knowledgeable and has a track record of success. But with so many attorneys out there and so many different types of cases, how does someone decide the right lawyer to hire? In this week's Legal 4-in-1, we're answering the question, what should I consider in hiring an attorney? In-state versus out-of-state, big firm or little firm, recommendations from friends or family, the internet, the phone book, or TV. With so many choices and so much information, it can be an overwhelming task trying to make the right decision. To complicate things, choosing a lawyer is an important and sometimes life-affecting decision and should not be taken lightly. So how do you select an attorney? First, do your research. Look the firm up on the internet. Learn about the cases they handle and the results they get. Second, find out what clients are saying about the firm. Many websites provide client testimonials or have a star ranking system. Use those to your advantage. And finally, talk with a lawyer from their office and ask them questions. Questions about the volume of cases they handle. Do they return phone calls? Are you just a number or a client that gets the attention you deserve? Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys right here on WVTM 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. Just a few minutes remaining in tonight's show, so if you want to take advantage of that opportunity to speak with some attorneys standing by live from Hollis Wright, you got just about 6 minutes to do so, so jump on that phone. Carter?
Yeah, Victor, let's talk about traffic stops for a second. And we get this question a lot in the phone bank in the show when people are calling in. And one of the questions is police officer pulls me over. He asked for me to show him my driver's license. Number one, do I have to comply and show him my driver's license? If I don't, what can happen to me? And number two is, if let's say they suspect DUI or alcohol is involved, they ask them to get out and do a field sobriety test, do they have to comply with that request?
So a few things. So one, under Alabama law, if you're in a vehicle, yes, you have to submit your driver's license. You're supposed to have it readily available to submit that driver's license over to law enforcement. So yes, and none of that flipping off at the mouth. Well, why you ask for my license? What did I do? No, he asked for your license, you got to give it up. If the officer asks to do the sobriety test, you don't have to do, the law doesn't say you have to do all that walking and the horizontal gaze and nystagmus test and the walking on a straight line, hopping on 1 foot. The law don't say that, but the law does say, you know, if you have an Alabama driver's license, then one of the things that you have to do, or they're gonna take this license from you, is you have to blow on the breathalyzer if they suspect you of DUI. And so, you know, you still have a choice though. You can choose, should I blow or should I not blow? and depending on that situation, you know, you decide what you need to do.
If you're real confident, you'll be below the legal limit and blow. If you're not, then say I'll opt to not blow.
Yeah, if it's an if then, if it's like I don't know, then I don't know.
Now there are some consequences to that if you refuse to take those tests, and there's like an automatic suspension of your license for 90 days,
9 days, that's right.
Okay.
That's right, that's correct.
All right, talk a little bit about, this is an interesting topic, statutory rape.
Yes.
So we're talking about where an adult male, I guess, has sexual interaction with a teenager or a girl that's under the age of 16. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And talk about, there's some unique aspects to that, because we've all seen situations where you might have a male senior in high school dating a freshman or a sophomore. Are there some cautions that you want to share with the viewers about that?
Absolutely. It's a very, very dangerous situation, and mom, dad, you need to talk to your high school senior, your high school juniors, because the law is that the age of consent is 16 years of age. And so, but you know, in this age and time, we know that these high schoolers are doing some things that they ought not do. And so if your high school senior is dating a sophomore, and that high school senior is more than 2 years and a day. It's 2 years and a day older than this girlfriend. So you're talking about a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old dating. And if they engage in any type of sexual act, that 17-year-old could be in big trouble, because that 15-year-old does not have the age of consent, and that person can be looking at becoming a sex offender for the rest of their life, and really not be able to choose where they live, where they go, and it could be a big situation.
Now, how does that work out? So, I mean, obviously, the parents are probably not consenting for their child to engage in a sexual act, but a lot of times the parents do consent to their child dating somebody that's 2 years and a day older. How does that factor into the equation? And are those cases, would they be very difficult to prosecute because you might not have the cooperation of the girl and her parents?
Well, what I've seen, that once mommy and daddy find out that their baby girl is involved in some sexual activity, they say, hey, and I want this guy prosecuted. And that's happened a lot. And so you get a young man who's a good young man, who was attracted to a girl just 2 years younger than him, and now has that title of sex offender. And this is not a sex offender. This is a good person that just dated someone that's in a single environment, a sophomore and a senior. And so you got to have that sex question, and you got to have those tough talks with your kids.
We're out of time, believe it or not. We have a minute and a half remaining in the show. I just want to give both of you quickly an opportunity for a final thought. And Victor, if you would, you go first, please, sir.
Well, I absolutely love doing criminal defense work. It's what I started off doing. It's what I'm very passionate about. I think that it is one of the most selfless things we can do, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show and talk about it. Will do.
Well, thank you so much, Victor, for coming on the show. We certainly see the passion that you have for representing people in these types of situations. We really appreciate the work that you're doing out there, and I think it's always important for us to remind the viewers, look, law enforcement, they're out there by and large, everybody. Most people are doing it the right way. They're doing good work to protect us and secure us as a community. But like with any profession at all, you do have some cops that take matters into their own hands or go to an extreme that they shouldn't go to. And certainly the viewers should be privileged to have somebody like you to represent them if they're ever caught up in that situation.
We are completely out of time. Thanks to the both of you. Great job. Interesting conversation. We got to do this again.
We will.
Round two. All right. Thanks so much for being with us. We're all done here. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you next time on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.